And here we have the man himself, Lieutenant Leon. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure being here. I rock with y'all, the Lethal Geeks, like no other. I'm
I
happy and
appreciate
proud to
that.
see, yeah, absolutely everything you guys have been doing, and happy to say that you guys are colleagues of the Syndicate Network.
Appreciate that. Thank you. We, like I said,
Absolutely.
we've stated this before. I'll state it again. We, the Lethal Geeks, we support Cell because we believe in Cell, and we're gonna keep rocking with what we believe in. So we definitely going to continue rocking with the hashtag. And you know what? It's gonna happen sooner or later. It's gonna happen because the news, if everybody's watching the news lately, things are going under. But we'll get to that in a minute. First, I want to start
Sir.
about you, sir. Like usually when we bring a guest into the show, we want to obviously a little break the ice and get to know them a little bit because a lot of people out there in the fandom in the community know you as the second in command, but they don't know Leon. They don't know the person. How did he get started into the fandom? How did he begin? The roots of the person. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how did you start? At what age did you start reading comics? What brought you into this niche that we call the geek nerd comic book genre?
So, good question. As a child, I remember one of the earliest comics that I can recall would be, I don't remember the exact number. I just remember it was a Batman comic. And I remember I actually, as a
Okay.
kid, because I was so inundated with the character that I committed the crime of defacing the comic. So I took a pair of scissors and I cut Batman out of the comic. And yeah, I put the character on a poster board with another character, and I was just like, I started drawing little things because I was just so like fascinated with, man, I really want this character. And then I remember my mother was like, I'll buy you one of the toys, like you don't have to do
Uh-huh.
this. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, it was funny, man. Um, and that was like the only comic I ever ruined. Was like one of the first comics I ever remember reading. I was like, oh, this comic was so cool. I want to have Batman now in my hands, you know. And so
Mm.
my young 5-year-old brain was like, let me grab these kitty scissors and cut him out. So I was like,
Was this in what type of Batman was it? Was it uh late '80s, early '90s? I'm like just get an idea.
oh, this was definitely 80s. This is 80s
Okay.
Batman right here. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it was like a Frank Miller. I think it was just like your, I don't want to say run of the mill like Chuck Dixon is run of the
Mhm.
mill, but probably like a Chuck
Right.
Dixon book. You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay, cool, cool. Now, do you like so basically? So Batman is pretty much your guy. Like you grew up with Batman, and that's where you got fun. And honestly, most of us were a lot of us were Batman fans first, then before moving into a lot of other DC characters. Like myself, also, I also grew up with Batman. Batman was the
Oh
goat
yeah.
to me, and during the years, I started building an affinity for the other heroes. Like like the first comic book that I read. Was the death of Superman. That's when I got
Mm.
hooked with holy shit, Superman, because you, it, and it was great in the marketing sense because I give you something, but I'm gonna take it away from you. And it's
Do you
like holy shit, what do I
remember?
do now? You know?
Do you remember the CNN story that they had that year? Like I remember that as a kid, bro.
No, dude, I don't remember that, man.
Oh
That I
man,
don't
I
remember.
remember
And
CNN covered the
I'm gonna
death
have
of
to Google it
Superman.
now.
Yeah,
I'm
you
gonna have to
gotta check
Google
that
that
out.
shit.
I
All
remember
right, I'm gonna
so
write that.
just talking about like that even, that experience as a child. I remember, he was such an iconic or is such an iconic character, Superman,
He
that
is, yeah.
when he died, you know, CNN covered it and they were doing interviews of people, and their reaction to the character, being killed by Doomsday. And I remember the next day going to school, or at least that week going to school, and having conversations with the homies like, yo, they killed Superman, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, back in the day, it wasn't a thing.
And there was
It
no
wasn't
internet
a,
at the time.
yes, that, and it wasn't like a reoccurring incident where characters or major characters, especially Superman, were killed. Now it's just like kind
Mm.
of, it happens every other week. But back then it was like, you know, the top dog
It was a
died.
global event that was like, holy shit, something happened, you know? And it's
100%.
funny because obviously Superman is not the first that we've had in the DC run. We've also had the
Right.
death of Robin, which also was impactful. But I'm confident to say that yes, Jason Todd dying through votes and everything because it was a very tight vote. Yeah, that made a huge impact, but not as huge as Superman. That was like ripping your heart off, like from the get go. You know,
Oh
so
yeah,
there was that run was very very impactful. You know, so and it's funny because we took Superman at the time. We took
for
Superman
granted.
for granted.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
not anymore.
yeah.
Not
Hell
anymore.
no.
You know, a lot of these heroes over the years have built their fan base and their affinity and their respect. You know, so hence why I believe that us in the Cell community, at least, I don't know about other communities, but that's a conversation for another time. How they respect the source material, you know, because you have to like there are rules that you don't break. You can bend them a little bit here and there to maybe try to modernize it to bring it to modern times to a younger audience today. But there are rules you don't break. You know what I mean? I don't know if am I
Oh yeah,
under
no,
it?
absolutely, absolutely.
No.
It's interesting too because you know the conversation about comics and the maturity level and the acceptance of, you know, are they mature, are they this and that. You couldn't tell a kid alive back then who heard about the death of Superman that that wasn't everything for them. It's incredibly impactful. And yeah, I think even DC kind of took them for granted because, you know, the death was one of the biggest marketing things that they've ever done at the time for comics. Probably the biggest, if we're being honest.
The
The death
biggest,
of
yeah, yeah.
the greatest superhero ever. And
He's been with us since what? It's been like what? Almost we're going for 100 years now with Superman. Give
almost,
or
it's getting
take.
there.
It's getting there, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like he's the first one. So it's like like it's going to make an impact, and maybe they didn't think that it was going to be that impactful. They know it was going to be, but I don't think they expect to be that big of a deal, like that huge. So, like you said, from a marketing standpoint, yeah, those comics sold out. But assuming that's sold out, and you've got your video games also
Oh yeah.
coming out, and now you've got your movies, and your animated adaptations, and also rewriting the story, like when in 52 and the Rebirth, and obviously with Snyder also, it's that comic book made a huge impact in comic book culture, you know.
Oh yeah. It kind of ripped a band-aid off on even killing off characters. Everybody was like, well, if Superman can bite the dust, it's a wrap for all y'all. You know.
Mm, right, right. Now, were you like a comic book kid? Like, did you collect comic books when you were growing up, or you were mostly like, mostly for the movies or the TV shows like Batman the Animated Series? Like, how did you? What was your growing up like? What you do? Did you like dress up as Batman when you were a kid? Like, do you have a lot of a collection of toys?
When I was a kid, so like I used to play ball a lot and I'd be outside
Okay.
all the time. We came from, you know, people like you and I came from that the outside generation, climbing trees, drinking from the water
Hmm.
hose, playing basketball, going to the
We touch
neighbor's house.
grass.
Facts. Like literally touch grass, right? Um, and I used to play ball all the time at any gym that was open. Like we get the ball and just like run to like the Boys and Girls Club or run to the court that was by the school, you know, whatever school you're at, right? But at the
Yeah.
same time, I was always stopping in at the local, like, you know, city folk would be like bodega or whatever, but it's basically a 7-Eleven, and you see the
Right.
racks. the little spinning racks, either those or the racks that just had the magazines. And I would always pick up a comic, always, because I drew as well. I used to draw a lot,
Really?
here and there
You,
nowadays.
do you still draw?
Yeah, here and there, here and there. I actually should have
Okay.
sent you. I might even send some of my art. Actually, now that I think about it, I didn't even think about that earlier, but um, that's another thing that got me into comics was the ability to draw. I remember being able to draw well enough to catch attention at the age of about going on 6, where you know how
Hmm.
some kids you see them, you're like, oh, okay, cool, they're doing stick figures, and I drew these covers that I had that looked like the Joker covers, and I took a piece of
Really?
cardboard, yeah, and I cut the cardboard out, and I took like some color pencils and crayons, and I just drew like that same face of the Joker, and that was like the first good drawing that I did for that age, you know. And my mom was like, "What?" And my father was like, "Yo, this kid's talented." So they just kind of fed into everything I did. Super hyper, so into basketball, you know, super artistic. So give the kid some, drawing materials and some comics. And so I'd literally run to 7-Eleven, go grab some comics, come back and draw my ass off. And back then it was so competitive as a kid to like do everything. I can play ball better than you. And I also had I can draw better than you, So it was crazy competitive in both senses. And I remember, if not Batman, it was Spider-Man. I went through the phases of bouncing between those two characters. And I grew
So
up seeing
you
the
were going
era
between Batman and Spider Man.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
and X-Men as
Do
well.
you Okay, that was not well. That was going to be my follow up question. So, what other characters do you follow? Do you like? I mean, from Marvel or from other sorts, like so X Men, Spider Man, and Batman. Are those like your to go comics characters, or do you have like other ones? Like for instance, for me, I'm a Wolverine guy. You can tell up there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know,
Great choice.
I'm also I'm also a big fan of John Constantine because I like the dark side of DC. I like
Yeah.
dark, like the like Swamp Thing. Also, like I like dark characters. Like
Oh yeah.
Daredevil's also my a favorite of mine. The Punisher, and yeah, Batman, of course. But I like the dark side because I like to go. I like it when these characters, these heroes, have to go to the edge, and they're like at the point of no return. You know what I mean? Well, Constantine has gone to the point of return multiple times. So it's like, all right, let's keep going
For
over, let's
sure.
keep going under. You know,
That brother's literally entered hell and back. Yeah, I used to,
act.
man, so my mind's like bouncing all over the place. But so characters other than Spider-Man and X-Men, I used to, because I came from the era of like JLA when JLA came out. That was like
Okay.
the biggest, best, most it made the most sense, like, even as a kid, because I never used to really read Justice League comics like that, and I remember one of the earliest memories of the Justice League was when they got their asses kicked by Doomsday, and
Mm,
I was like that was like that was the JLA for me, right? And so or Justice League, they called themselves Justice League International, and then fast
International.
forward to when Grant Morrison took over, and it was like it was kind of almost a response to you know, them getting their asses kicked by Doomsday in a sense, because that version of the Justice League, that wasn't their top tier guys. And so Superman comes back from the dead, long hair, et cetera, et cetera. The superheroes come together, they go through all these little different things. And I'm going through all that too as a kid. And then we end up in JLA. And then I kept up with like Spider-Man Clone Saga. And
Okay.
I remember back then everybody was like, all the critics were like, "This sucks. This is," you couldn't tell a child back then reading those books that they weren't reading blockbuster hits. I love the
Mm.
Clone Saga for Spider-Man. I love '90s
Now,
comics overall. You know what I mean?
and what's your favorite what's your favorite story before we move on to the next topic? What's your favorite story of like for a lot of people they like the Dark Knight Returns, other them like the Death of Robin, other them like the Death of Superman. So like or the Killing Joke. Like, what's your favorite story, graphic novel story of DC? The one that you're like, you know what, this is the one. You know, which the one that has your heart in it.
Let me see. I don't have just one, but if I
Okay,
had to
yeah,
pick
if you have a
one,
few more, if you have more than one, that's fine. That's fine.
sure. Oh yeah, I think let me see. Off the top of my head, for some reason, and this is more me as an adult.
Hmm.
The multiversity is perhaps one of the greatest DC love stories, especially for the multiverse ever. It's such a clever story. The fact that each issue is issue number one of their particular universe that they're telling the story of, and then they compile
Mm.
all the number ones together until they get to quote unquote issue number two, and it just becomes this amazing graphic novel about the multiverse. And before that, I'd say as a kid, I used to love like 90s Batman, where it was like all black, gold logo. The car was jet black. They were kind of mimicking the movies then. You know what I mean?
Batman '89, you mean? Mimicking
Right.
Batman
Yeah,
'89.
yeah. They were mimicking, yep, the
Yeah,
Burton films.
I remember, like, I remember going with my parents to go watch Batman. Not '89. I don't think I no. I don't think I saw Batman '89 in theaters. I was way too young, but I
Yeah.
did go and see '92 with my mom and dad. That I do remember going to the theaters with them. They took me to see Batman Returns. That I do remember.
I can say this. There's only, I think, let me see. As far as live action Batman goes, there's only two that I have never seen in theaters. And that
Okay.
is, outside of like 66, because I ain't that old. Outside of like West, I would say I have not seen the Batman in theaters, and I have not seen Batman and Robin in theaters. Because even as a child, I saw Batman and Robin and what they were making. I was just like, I don't want to see that. I do not want to see
Yeah, I do
Batman
remember
handling
though
this
when I
way.
was growing up. When I was
Yeah.
growing up and staying at my grandparents, I would watch uh, Batman, like the show from the '60s, with my grandparents.
Hell
So
yeah. That's all we had.
that was
That was
yeah,
everything.
that was everything at the time. Now it's campy, goofy, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's, like you said, it's what we had, you know. And yeah, Batman and Robin, yeah, but no comment.
Facts. Yeah. It's funny because
No
like,
comment. And even the actors know that okay, we fucked up here. So listen, I mean, we
right.
took the L. Let's just move on with this movie, you know. So even they know, even Arnold and Clooney, like fuck that, you know.
All right, everyone. Yeah. It was insane, bro. Because like, I remember just, and I'll mention another comic in a second, but just talking
Sure.
about B&R for a second, I was like, bro, I remember watching it. Finally, my folks went and grabbed it, on DVD, and they popped it in. And I remember we had this big ass box of pizza, and we all just sat on the floor. But the whole family sat on the floor, me, my siblings, the folks, this big ass box of pizza, eating and just watching this. And my dad looked back at me and was like, he looked at me like, what the hell? Like, because he knows I'm the Batman kid. And I looked at him, I'm shaking my
Yeah.
head like, yo, I don't get this. And I said, this is why I didn't want to watch this in the movie theaters. And everyone started laughing. I was like, it's crappy. Like, I knew, even as a kid, I knew that it was garbage because I grew up loving darker, edgier, more mature things, such as like
You
battle
you and I
chases.
share you and I share a common. Before now, we'll move to the next one. Before that, you and I share a common love for Vampire Hunter D. That I have noticed.
Yes. Yes.
I
I had that in the
love
back of
that
my
shit.
head
And
as I was saying that too. That's so funny.
yeah,
That kind of
I
thrusted me into that world of mature material.
yeah, me too. Yeah, because I remember seeing the movies as a kid, growing up in Chile, like Vampire Hunter on VHS, and then later, okay, the Bloodlust and Hope. I don't understand why they can't just put that shit on a streaming like that. I mean, they've got Castlevania. Use that. Why I don't know why don't they use that as the blueprint to bring Vampire Hunter to you? It would fucking kill it. It would be amazing. You
That's
know,
why
but
I have all my favorite animes I bought on physical, and I made sure to buy some of them in like steelbook. You know what I mean? Like, and I
yeah.
have both Vampire Hunter D and Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust on steelbook and special edition because I freaking love those movies. They're amazing.
I'm actually, I don't know if you knew that they did a Kickstarter event of Vampire Hunter D Message to Mars. So I definitely want to get that copy, but
Oh,
we're talking almost
what?
$500, like $500 through eBay. So it's a little steep for me now, but eventually I'm gonna get it because that's just art.
Is it
But
it's the comic or the?
I think it's a comic. Yeah, it's like
Oh,
I think they did like a 6 issue comic, but again, it was just exclusive through Kickstarter, so you had to pledge for it in order to get it. Like I did a pledge now for Terminator right now because since Terminator is in its 40th anniversary, they bundled all the comic book Terminators. So I
oh, that's
got that for
awesome.
like 120. So I'm definitely going to share that once it's right because the pledge just ended a few months ago. So once I get that collection, I'm definitely going to share that on the show.